Good evening. I'm David Slocum, the Faculty Director of the Berlin School of Creative Leadership, and it's my pleasure to have a chance tonight to speak with Sandra Matz. I wanted to start generally by talking to you about some of the connections you see, both for business but also more generally, between fast emerging and changing data science and data analytics fields and psychology.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually something that developed a lot over the past years. It's like something that is called computational social science, and that's really kind of trying to combine like the computer sciences side with like more social sciences questions. So really what it means is that we're now using computational methods to answer questions that we addressed in psychology for quite a long time. And that opens up a whole lot of new possibilities because we can now study actual behavior, something that psychology has always been about, but it was very difficult to capture it. So that's why we kind of started using questionnaire measures. But now that we have the possibilities to actually look at the behavior and look at what people do out there in the real world, we can answer those questions much better.
What are some of the specific questions that particularly interest you in terms of this computational social science and marketing or consumer behavior?
So one of the questions that like my colleagues and I have looked into is like what do the digital footprints that we leave pretty much every day with everything we do, like whether it's browsing the internet, spending something with your credit card, or using your phone, and what that does tell us about our psychological profile. So what does it tell us about our personality, about who we are in a sense? So we're looking at, for example, what does it tell us if someone talks about holidays a lot on Facebook, or if someone likes Lady Gaga versus liking BBC? What does it tell us about the person behind those behaviors?
So that sounds like a very powerful new way to analyze consumer behavior and become a great resource for brands or agencies. What should consumers or users of social media, for example, be thinking about these new methods?
I think in one way it's basically saying, look, everything that you do online now is recorded, and it's not just that liking something on Facebook is a simple like, but it actually tells something to the outside world about who you are as a person. It can tell you something about your personality, about your political orientation, even something more intimate like sexual orientation that you might not have intended to reveal. And I think key here is really that companies are trying to use it in a way that benefits the consumers. So kind of taking the data that's out there and creating value from it. So that's what we kind of see companies starting to do and companies thinking in that way is how can we use the data that we have to, for example, recommend products that match the consumer's interest and not just trying to maximize profit simply by extracting the data that they can and not giving anything back to the consumer.
What do you see as some of the potential changes to advertising agencies or the relationships that exist between advertising and marketing experts and brands themselves?
Well, I think it's a super exciting time for brands because it's not just that you have this one brand and you kind of communicate it to everybody in the same way, but what it offers you, kind of understanding each and every individual consumer, is that you can be a specific brand to each of these people. So it's not that you're limited in the terms of how you present your brand, but you can actually create different brands for different consumer segments. And I also hear quite often that technology is killing creativity. And I don't think that that's actually the case because now that we're kind of bringing back this human element and we're understanding consumers on the level of something like personality or other psychological traits, we can actually bring back this creative spirit and say, okay, so we know that these segments, they're defined in terms of data, but they're also defined in terms of their psychology, and that's something that we can understand and that we can use in the creative language that we kind of use and create in order to advertise products. So I think especially the step of kind of translating data into something that's more meaningful to us as human beings actually helps a lot in the creative process.
And at the Berlin School, we always, of course, have to ask about the impact of the kinds of changes that you're leading for creative leaders. For those who are not computational social scientists, what kind of advice can you give them in terms of generating a better understanding of some of these changes that are underway, and as you say, this exceptional new power which is being developed.
Well, I think the main advice I would give is basically to be open-minded, because as I said, oftentimes technology is perceived as something that's going against creativity. And that's something that I really like to do, and that's what we also do in the research, that we actually we bring together a team of people from different disciplines. So we bring in the computer scientist, we bring in the creative person, we bring in the psychologist, and then we just sit at a table and discuss ideas. And I think that's a way of actually learning how the different disciplines think, what they can bring to the table, and then also how you can integrate it into the final product that benefits the company and benefits the consumer.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you again for being here with us and sharing your thought leadership with the Berlin School.
Thank you.